The night my own mother locked me out of the house, I kept telling myself it had to be a mistake. It was a little after midnight. My hands were shaking from the cold as I climbed the front steps, the yellow porch light glowing like it always did. That light used to feel warm, safe, like home. That night, it felt like a spotlight on how alone I was. I pressed my key into the lock and turned it like I had 1,000 times before. It stopped, hard. The key didn't even go all the way in. I froze. I tried again, slower this time. I pushed, twisted, wiggled it up and down the way you do when a lock is sticky. Nothing. The key didn't fit anymore. A stupid thought ran through my head first. Maybe I grabbed the wrong key. I stepped back off the porch and dug through my bag. I had exactly one house key, the same scratched silver key I'd had since I was 15, and my dad said, "You're old enough now. This is your home too." I stared at it in my palm. The metal was cold, familiar, real. I tried the door again anyway. No movement, no click. Just that dead, solid feeling when you know something isn't stuck. It's different. Changed. That's when the dread started to rise in my chest. I walked around the house, my shoes crunching softly on the gravel. I tried the side door, then the back. I knew it was pointless. If they'd changed one lock, they'd change them all. But I still tried. Side door, nothing. Back door, nothing. Every single lock I'd opened for years now shut me out. My phone buzzed in my pocket. For a second, hope flared so bright it almost hurt. Maybe Mom realized I was outside. Maybe she'd fallen asleep and just woken up and everything was about to make sense again. I pulled my phone out. No missed calls. No messages from Mom. Just a low battery warning, glowing bright and cold at 9%. I tapped her contact and called. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then her voicemail. "Hey, it's Mom. Leave a message." My throat was tight. "Mom, it's me. I'm at the house. My key isn't working. Did something happen to the lock? Can you open the door?" I tried to keep my voice steady, like this was just some weird misunderstanding. Like any second she'd laugh and say, "Oh, honey, sorry, we had to change the lock and I forgot to tell you." I hung up and texted right away. Me. "Mom, I'm outside. My key doesn't work. Are you okay?" Nothing. I waited on the porch, pacing back and forth, hugging myself against the wind. Her car was in the driveway. The living room lights were off, but I could see the blue glow of the TV leaking through the curtains. They were in there. She was in there. And I was out here. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. I called again. This time the call didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail. She had sent me to voicemail. My chest felt tight and hot now. I wasn't just confused. I was scared. Another text. Me. "Mom, please, just open the door. We can talk." The typing bubble didn't appear. The screen stayed empty. My battery dropped from 9% to 8%. The silence felt louder than any argument. I sank down on the top step, wrapping my arms around my knees. The wood was cold under me. I kept looking back at the front door like it was going to magically swing open, and this would all turn out to be some bizarre mistake. Finally, at 12:37 a.m., my phone lit up. A text from Mom. For a second, I actually smiled in relief. Then I opened it. "Mom. Emma, don't make this harder. We changed the locks. You can't stay here anymore. Please stop coming to the house." The words didn't make sense at first. It was like my brain refused to put them together. "We changed the locks. You can't stay here anymore. Stop coming to the house." I read it once, then again, slower each time, waiting for the meaning to change. My own mother had locked me out and told me not to come back. I wanted to believe Mark had taken her phone. I wanted to believe someone else had written that. Anyone but her. My fingers shook as I typed. Me. "What? Mom, what are you talking about? This is my home too. Please open the door." Me. "Mom, please answer." Me. "I don't have anywhere to go tonight." No reply. The porch light hummed quietly. The house stayed dark and silent. Behind those walls was my old bedroom. My dad's chair. My little sister's toys. Everything that used to be my whole world. And not one person inside cared that I was sitting on the front steps, shivering. Eventually, my battery slipped to 3%. The cold had seeped through my coat and into my bones. I walked back down the steps in a daze and sat in my car, pulling my knees up to my chest, my breath fogging the windows. That was where I spent the night. Outside the house I grew up in. Outside the door my dad used to open with a smile, locked out by the one person I never thought would turn her back on me. Back then, I thought the text she sent was the worst part. But while I sat shivering in the dark, my phone dead in my hand, there was another message out there. A secret message I hadn't seen yet. And when I finally read it, I stopped wondering why my mother locked me out and started planning how I was going to expose both of them. To understand how I ended up sleeping in my car outside my own house, you have to know what that house used to mean to me. I grew up in that small beige two-story with the crooked porch step and the noisy pipes. To anyone else, it was just another old house on a quiet street. To me, it was my dad humming in the kitchen, my mom laughing at his awful jokes, birthday banners taped up crooked over the doorway, the squeak of the front door at midnight when I tried to sneak back in. It was the one place that always felt like it would be mine. When I was 17, my dad sat me down at the dining room table with a serious look on his face. The sun was coming in through the blinds, drawing lines of light across his tired face. "Emma," he said, sliding a little folder toward me, "I just want you to know, if anything ever happens to me, you don't have to be scared. This house is half yours. I put it in writing." I remember laughing it off. "Dad, don't talk like that." He smiled, tired but warm. "I'm serious. Your mom and we want you to feel safe. You'll always have a place here. Promise me you'll remember that." I nodded, barely glancing at the paperwork. I didn't care about deeds or wills. I cared that my dad was there, at the table, drinking his terrible instant coffee and teasing Mom about burning the toast again. He died 8 months later. A heart attack, quick, cruel. One morning he just didn't wake up. We went from joking about his coffee to picking out a coffin in a week. People brought casseroles. They hugged us. They said things like, "He's in a better place now," as if that helped. I watched my mom crumble. She stopped cooking, stopped laughing, stopped going out. The house got quieter and heavier. I tried to help, tried to pick up the pieces, but I was grieving too. It felt like the air itself was thicker in there. That was when the first papers came out. A man from the bank sat at our kitchen table with a stack of documents and a smooth, practiced voice. "Just standard stuff," he said. "We're updating a few things now that your husband has passed. Nothing to worry about." Mom nodded through tears, her eyes red and exhausted. I sat beside her, numb. The man pointed where she needed to sign. Then he slid a page to me. "And Emma, we just need your signature right here as an acknowledgement, since your name is mentioned." I stared at the lines of text. They blurred. My dad had been in the ground for 3 days. My mother's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the pen. "Is this okay?" I asked, feeling like a little kid pretending to be an adult. Mom wiped her eyes. "It's fine, honey. It's just house stuff. Your father already set everything up." The man smiled, too quickly. "It's all in your favor, I promise." I didn't read it. I just signed. Because I trusted my mom. Because my dad had said the house was half mine. Because I never imagined anyone would use that moment against me. After that, we survived. Barely. I got a job at a cafe to help with bills. Mom picked up extra shifts at the hospital. We floated. We didn't talk about the papers again. A year later, she met Mark. He was charming in that smooth way some people are. Helpful. The kind of man who brings flowers just because and washes the dishes without being asked. At first, I was happy for her. She was only in her 40s. I didn't want her to be alone forever. He showed up to family dinners with dessert. He sat on the couch and asked about my classes. He washed his own plate. It all looked so picture perfect from the outside. But over time, the house started to feel less like ours and more like his. Mark moved in temporarily while his place was being sorted out. His boxes ended up stacked in the garage, his jackets in the hall closet, his shoes by the front door. His toothbrush sat next to my dad's old razor on the bathroom shelf. He never said it out loud, not at first, but I could feel it in the way he walked through the rooms, like he owned everything his eyes landed on. The house still creaked the same way. The porch light still hummed, but slowly, without me noticing, the meaning of it was changing. Sometimes I'd catch him standing in the doorway, looking around like he was mentally moving walls, replacing furniture, rearranging lives, like he was planning a future that didn't have room for my past. If I'd known what I'd really signed back then, I never would have let Mark cross that doorstep. At first, he played the role of perfect stepdad, so well it almost felt fake. He'd cook on Sundays, loud music playing while he grilled in the backyard. He'd joke with me, ask about my day, slip Mom little kisses on the cheek when he thought I wasn't looking. He fixed the leaky sink. He patched the hole in the drywall from when Dad and I tried to DIY and failed. If you walked in during those first months, you'd think, wow, they're doing okay? They're healing. Look at them, moving on. But little things started to bother me. The way he referred to the house as my place when talking to his friends on the phone. The way he called my room the spare room when he thought I couldn't hear. The way Mom laughed a little louder at his jokes when I was in the room, like she was trying to prove something. I tried to ignore it. I had other problems. I was juggling classes, shifts at the cafe, and a messy breakup with a guy who turned out to be cheating on me. When that relationship blew up, I couldn't afford my tiny off-campus apartment anymore. I remember sitting on the floor of that tiny place, surrounded by boxes I couldn't afford to move, crying into a cold slice of pizza. I didn't want to make the call. I didn't want to feel like a failure. Mom didn't hesitate when I finally did. "Come back home," she said over the phone. "This is still your home, Emma. We'll figure it out." I moved back in, dragging my boxes up the same porch steps I would one day stand on, locked out. Mark helped, carrying my things inside with a forced smile, like he was doing me a favor. "Just until you get back on your feet," he said, as if the words tasted sour in his mouth. "Right," I answered, even though part of me wanted to snap that it wasn't his place to decide how long I could stay in the house my dad paid for. At first it was okay. I was grateful. I bought groceries when I could. I cleaned. I watched my little half-sister, Lily, when Mom needed to pick up extra shifts. I tried to stay out of the way, slip in and out quietly, avoid conflict. But slowly the tone changed. Mark started making comments. "So, when are you thinking of moving out again?" He'd ask, half joking, half not, leaning in the kitchen doorway while I washed dishes. I'd laugh it off. When I can actually afford a place that isn't a shoebox or a car. He'd shake his head and put his arm around Mom. "Kids never leave the nest these days, huh?" he'd say, like I wasn't standing right there. One night at dinner, it stopped sounding like a joke. The four of us sat at the table. Mom, me, little Lily in her booster seat swinging her legs, Mark carving roast chicken like some TV dad. "So we need to talk about money," Mark said, as if he was the head of the house. "Emma, you're old enough now. You should be contributing more if you're staying here." I put my fork down. "I pay for groceries. I help with Lily. I'm still finishing school. That's not the same as paying real bills." He cut in. "Electric, mortgage, water." I looked at Mom. "Mom, Dad always said—" Mark's jaw tightened. "Well, your dad isn't here. I am." The words hit me like a slap. The room went quiet. The only sound was Lily humming to herself and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Mom stared at her plate. "He's just saying, we're tight right now, honey. Mark's been covering a lot." "I'm trying," I said softly. "You know I'm trying." Mark sighed heavily, rolling his eyes a little. "Nobody's attacking you. I just think it's time we had clear boundaries. You're not a kid anymore. This isn't a free crash pad." There it was, the shift. I wasn't a daughter living at home. I was a burden he wanted to move out of his way. I wanted to remind him that my dad's name had been on every bill before his. That Dad had told me the house was half mine. That once, this had been our place, long before Mark even knew we existed. Instead, I swallowed it. I told myself not to start a fight. I told myself Mom was stuck in the middle. After dinner, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. "She's my daughter," Mom said, her voice low and tight. "She just needs more time." "She's an adult," Mark hissed back. "We can't carry her forever. We talked about this. We said once everything was settled, we'd make changes. You wanted a fresh start, remember?" "We're not throwing her out," Mom whispered. "We're not throwing her out," he repeated. "We're setting boundaries. There's a difference." Then softer, but more dangerous. "Once the papers go through, it'll be cleaner. You'll own the house, not her. Then it won't be so complicated." My heart pounded. I stepped quietly back up the stairs before they could catch me eavesdropping. Papers. She'll own the house, not her. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was overthinking, telling myself they were just stressed, telling myself Mark wouldn't actually do anything. I didn't know it then, but those words were the first crack in the door that would slam shut in my face. A few weeks later, I got called in for a double shift at the cafe. A big catering order had come in last minute, and we were slammed. I texted Mom I'd be late. Me. Don't wait up. Late shift. Love you. No reply, but that wasn't unusual anymore. She had grown quiet with me, like every word was walking across thin ice. The night was long and brutal. My feet felt like they didn't belong to me anymore. We stayed late to clean up the mess from the catering order. When I finally slid into my car, it was after midnight. I drove home on autopilot, the streetlights blurring past, my tired brain already planning a hot shower and collapsing into bed. Instead, I found myself on the porch with my key jamming uselessly in the lock. The anger would come later. At first, there was just disbelief. I tried everything. I knocked. I rang the bell. I called. I texted. I walked around the house, hoping someone would see my shadow through the curtains and come check. No one came. The only proof that they were in there at all was the faint sound of the TV and Lily's stuffed unicorn propped in the window of her bedroom. I wasn't some stranger. I wasn't an ex. I was their daughter, Lily's sister, my dad's child. And still, no one came to the door. When Mom's text finally came, telling me the locks were changed and I couldn't stay there anymore, something inside me cracked in a way I didn't know how to fix. I could have gone to a friend's place. I could have driven around all night. But I was so stunned, so sure it had to be some kind of test or twisted misunderstanding, that I just stayed. I sat in my car like some stray animal, sleeping outside the warm glow of a house that used to be home, hoping the door would open again. At some point, I must have dozed off. I jerked awake with my neck stiff and my mouth dry. The sky was pale, that ugly gray color just before sunrise. My phone was dead. My back ached from the car seat. I looked up at the house. The porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. It looked like any normal morning, like a family was inside getting ready for their day. My family. I swallowed hard, plugged my phone into my car charger, and waited for it to turn back on. The first notifications were the usual noise. Spam email, a bank alert, a 2 a.m. You up? Text from my ex I ignored. Then one notification stood out. A message from my Aunt Sarah. She almost never texted me that early. Aunt Sarah, are you okay? Call me as soon as you see this. It's about your mom and Mark. My heart lurched. I called her right away. She picked up on the first ring. Emma, oh thank God, are you safe? Yeah, I said, though I didn't feel safe at all. What's going on? Did she really change the locks? She asked, her voice tight. The shame hit me like a wave. Yeah, I whispered. I'm literally outside the house right now. She said I can't stay here anymore. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Oh, Emma. Why are you asking? I managed. I got an email last night, she said. I don't think they meant to send it to me. It was from Mark's account. Your mom was copied. My email was on it too for some reason. I think he meant to send it to his brother. Our emails are similar. My stomach twisted. What did it say? I'm going to forward it, she said. Read it and then come straight to my place. Don't go inside the house, even if she suddenly changes her mind. Do you understand me? I can't go inside even if I want to, I said bitterly. They saw to that. Emma, I'm serious, she pressed. Just read it, then come. A new email pinged on my phone. FW, house. From Aunt Sarah. Original sender, Mark. My hands trembled as I opened it. The message was short, clean, cold. Mark, once the locks are changed and she can't get back in, it will be easier to encourage her to move on. She already signed away her rights when she was grieving. She just doesn't remember. The lawyer said as long as she doesn't fight it, everything stays clean. We just need to be firm and not let her back in. After that, the house is fully ours. No more drama. Below it, my mother's reply. Mom, I hate this. She's my daughter. Mark, you're doing what's best. She'll land on her feet. You wanted a new life, remember? Once this is done, it's just us and Lily. Clean slate, no more chaos. Mom, fine, let's just get it over with. No more chaos. Clean slate. Get it over with. I felt like I was going to throw up. So it wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't some heat-of-the-moment decision. They had planned it, talked about it. Mark had written it down like he was writing a memo about cleaning out a storage unit. And the part that made my blood run cold, She already signed away her rights when she was grieving. She just doesn't remember. The papers, the kitchen table, the man from the bank with the smooth voice, my mother's shaking hand. I thought of my dad telling me, "This house is half yours." I thought of myself, signing something I hadn't read because I trusted the woman who just locked me out. My mother had let it happen. They had waited until I had nowhere else to go, until I needed that house again. And then they shut the door in my face and told themselves I'd land on my feet. The cold I felt now had nothing to do with the morning air. Something inside me hardened. I wiped my eyes, put the car in gear, and pulled away from the curb. They thought I was weak. They thought I wouldn't fight. They thought I'd just disappear quietly, because that would be easier for them. But that secret message changed everything, because now I had proof. And I wasn't going to cry on their porch anymore. I was going to expose them. Aunt Sarah lived 20 minutes away, in a small townhouse that smelled like coffee and laundry detergent. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't say a word. She just pulled me into a hug so tight I finally broke. I didn't just cry. I shook. All the shock and humiliation and confusion of the night before poured out of me onto her shoulder. She didn't tell me to calm down. She didn't say, "I'm sure there's another side." She just held me until my breathing slowed. Then she sat me at her kitchen table, the same place my life had quietly changed once before, and put a steaming mug of tea in front of me. "Okay," she said softly. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." So I did. I told her about the dinner when Mark called it his house, about the way he'd been pushing for me to move out, about Mom going distant whenever I tried to talk about the future, about coming home to find the locks changed, the cold text, the way my calls went straight to voicemail while her car sat in the driveway. When I finished, she looked like she wanted to march over there and rip the door off its hinges. "That man is a snake," she said finally. "And your mother, I don't even have a word for what she's doing right now." I stared down at my mug. "Maybe I did something to deserve it," I mumbled. "Maybe I stayed too long. Maybe I'm just too much. Maybe—" "Stop." Her voice cut through my spiral. "You are not the problem here. You didn't change the locks. You didn't send that message. You didn't write that email." I knew she was right, but the weight of what I'd read was still crushing me. "What did he mean?" I asked quietly. "About me signing away my rights when I was grieving." She sighed and pushed her own mug aside. "That's the part that worries me the most, and the part that might save you." "What do you mean, save me?" I asked. "Your dad was my brother," she said. "He told me the same thing he told you, that half the house was going to be yours, but I never saw the final papers. After he died, everything happened so fast. Your mom kind of shut me out too. We stopped talking about money or property." I frowned. "So you think, what, that they changed something after he died?" "I think they took advantage of you when you were in shock," she said. "And I think Mark has been cleaning up ever since. But he got sloppy. He put it in writing." She tapped the printed email lying on the table between us. She'd already printed it out when I arrived. "Can he do that?" I asked. "Can they really just erase me from the house?" Her expression hardened. "Not legally. Not cleanly. Not if we fight back." "We?" I repeated. "You didn't think I was going to let you do this alone, did you?" she asked. "Listen, I know a lawyer, not some big fancy guy, but solid. He helped me with my divorce. He hates people who think they can scare family into giving up what's theirs." My heart sped up. "You think I have a case?" "I think you have more than most people ever get," she said. "You have your dad's promise in writing. You have their emails showing what they were planning. And you have the fact that they literally locked you out the night before this clean slate was supposed to be complete." I thought of my mother's text. "We changed the locks. Please stop coming to the house." Shame burned in my chest again, but this time there was something else under it. Anger. Not wild, loud anger. Cold anger. Clear. "What do we do?" I asked. Aunt Sarah leaned forward. "First, we find every piece of paper with your name on it. The will, the deed, anything about the house. We see exactly what they tried to do. Then we go to the lawyer. We don't warn them. We don't confront them. Not yet." I hesitated. "But Mom, she's still my mom." "I know," she said gently. "And nothing we do will change that. But being your mother doesn't give her the right to steal from you. or to throw you out, or to pretend you don't exist when it's easier for her new life. The words hit hard because they were exactly what I'd been afraid to say out loud. "Won't this blow everything up?" I whispered. She nodded. "Yes, it will. But they're the ones who lit the fuse. You're just deciding you're not going to stand there and let it explode in your face." We spent the rest of the morning digging. Aunt Sarah still had a folder of old documents my dad had given her just in case. She'd shoved them in a closet after the funeral and never opened them again. Now we laid them out on the table. Old copies of insurance policies, a handwritten list of passwords he'd meant to update, and finally, a photocopy of his original will. There it was in black and white. Half the house to his wife, half the house to his daughter Emma. Me. Something inside me steadied. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined his promise. He hadn't just said it to make me feel better. He'd meant it enough to put it in writing. But when we compared that to a more recent record Aunt Sarah pulled up online, something ugly appeared. According to the latest property documents, the house was now listed under one name, my mother's, not mine. And there, at the bottom of a scanned form, was my signature. The same rushed, messy version of my name I'd scribbled that week after the funeral. It felt like looking at a crime scene where I was both the victim and the one who unknowingly handed over the weapon. "They used that," I said hollowly. "They used me." Aunt Sarah nodded. "They tried to. But here's the thing, Emma. They left fingerprints everywhere. And that email?" She tapped the printed page again. "That email is the piece that ties it all together. What they wanted. How they planned to pressure you. Locking you out to encourage you." She looked me in the eyes. "You ready to fight this?" I thought of sitting in my car all night, watching the porch light, begging for a response that never came. I thought of my dad's hand on that folder, telling me I'd always have a home. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm done begging at their door." The lawyer's office was smaller than I expected. No shiny marble floors. No giant windows overlooking the city. Just a waiting room with old magazines and a receptionist who smiled kindly when she saw my swollen eyes. His name was Mr. Patel. He listened more than he spoke. He let me tell the whole story without interrupting, his eyes moving between me, Aunt Sarah, and the stack of papers we'd brought. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. "Well," he said slowly, "they have made some very bold choices." "Can they really get away with it?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not easily, and not quietly. The problem people like Mark have," he added, lifting the printed email, "is that they think they're smarter than everyone. So they write things down they should never put in writing." He read the email again out loud, each line like a nail in a coffin. "Once the locks are changed, she already signed away her rights. We just need to be firm and not let her back in. After that, the house is fully ours. If a judge reads this," Mr. Patel said, looking back at me, "he won't like it." "So what happens?" I asked. "What can I actually do?" "First," he said, "we challenge the transfer. You were in a vulnerable state when you signed. You were not given independent advice. Your father's will clearly shows a different intention. Second, we bring up the way they locked you out. Combined with this email, it looks less like setting boundaries and more like pressure. Third, we send them a letter from this office. We tell them you know. We give them a chance to fix this before we go to court." "A letter?" I repeated. "Yes," he said calmly. "Not a text, not a screaming match on the porch, a letter with my name at the bottom. Something they can't pretend they never saw." He smiled slightly. "Men like Mark hate surprises they can't control." What if she panics?" I asked. "I don't want her to go to jail or anything. I just want what's fair." He nodded. "Most likely this will end in a settlement. We aim to restore your rights to the property as your father intended. Maybe they buy out your share. Maybe you become a co-owner again. We will see. But Emma, you need to understand something." He leaned forward. "You are not the one destroying your family. They did that when they decided to trick you instead of talk to you. What you're doing now is standing up. That's not revenge. That's justice." Tears stung my eyes again, but this time there was a thin line of pride cutting through the hurt. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." The letter went out 2 days later. It was calm, professional, deadly. It laid out everything. The original will, the suspicious transfer, the email, the lock change. It stated that I knew, that I had legal representation, and that I was prepared to challenge any attempt to cut me off from my rightful share of the house. We gave them a deadline to respond. They didn't answer the letter. They called me. First, it was Mom. 15 missed calls in one afternoon. I watched the screen light up over and over, my thumb hovering over the accept button, my heart pounding, my stomach in knots. I didn't pick up. Her voicemail was long and frantic. "Emma, what have you done? A lawyer? How could you do this to us? To me?" Mark is furious. "You're making a mistake. We were trying to help you grow up. You didn't have to go this far." Next came a text from Mark. "Mark, you're blowing this way out of proportion. No one was trying to hurt you. You're letting outsiders poison your mind. We can fix this as a family. Drop the lawyer and come talk like an adult." I stared at his message, feeling that old familiar shame tug at me. Maybe I was blowing it up. Maybe I should have gone to them first. Maybe I was overreacting, ungrateful, dramatic. Then I read his email again. "Once the locks are changed, she already signed away her rights when she was grieving. After that, the house is fully ours." No, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't hysterical. I was just finally refusing to be the quiet, grateful girl who took whatever scraps of respect they offered. Mr. Patel advised me not to answer their calls. "If they want to talk," he said, "they can talk to me." A week later, we got a reply. Not from them, but from their lawyer. They wanted a meeting. The day of the meeting, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I nearly told Mr. Patel to go without me, to just tell me what happened after. But then I pictured myself on that porch in the dark, shoving my useless key into a lock that would never open. I pictured my mom's text. "We changed the locks. You can't stay here anymore." I wasn't that version of myself anymore. I walked into the conference room. They were already there. Mark in a crisp button-down shirt, jaw tight, eyes hard. My mother beside him, looking smaller somehow. Her hair pulled back too tight. Her eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept. For a moment, our eyes met. There was guilt there, and fear, and something that almost looked like relief, like some part of her had been waiting for this to explode. "Emma," she whispered. "Baby." Mr. Patel touched my arm lightly. I sat down across from them. The table felt too big, the room too quiet. The two lawyers did the official talking at first. Dates, documents, copies of wills and transfers, legal terms that buzzed around my head like flies. Then Mr. Patel slid the printed email to the center of the table. "Let's stop pretending this was a simple misunderstanding," he said calmly. "Your own words are very clear, Mr. Collins." Mark's eyes flickered. "That email was taken out of context. Please," Mr. Patel said mildly, "feel free to give us the full context." Silence pressed on the room like heavy air. My mother stared at the page, her face draining of color. She looked like she might throw up right there on the table. "Linda," Mr. Patel said gently, turning to her, "did you understand that when Emma signed that document after her father's death, she was giving up her share of the house?" My mother's lower lip trembled. She shot a quick, panicked look at Mark. He spoke before she could. "She wasn't giving up anything. We were just simplifying things. She's young. We didn't want the burden on her. It was for her own good." "For her own good," Mr. Patel repeated. "And locking her out overnight? Was that also for her own good?" Mark's jaw clenched. She was refusing to move on. We had to set boundaries. "You know how young people are?" Everyone looked at me then. I felt my face burn, but I held his gaze. "You told your brother," Mr. Patel went on, tapping the email, "that you just needed to be firm, not let her back in, and that once that was done, the house would be fully yours. That doesn't sound like concern. That sounds like greed." Mark's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Let's not jump to emotional language. I lost my home," I cut in, my voice shaking but loud. "I slept in my car outside the house my dad promised me. I begged my own mother to open the door and she ignored me. If anyone gets to be emotional here, it's me." The room went very still. My mother covered her face with her hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. Mark said—" "Linda," he snapped, low and warning. She flinched at his tone. "I'm not going to throw you in jail," I said quietly, looking at her. "I'm not here to ruin your life. I just want what Dad wanted, what he told both of us. I want my share. I want my dignity, and I want you to admit what you did was wrong. Tears slid down her cheeks. We'll contest this transfer, mister, Patel said firmly. We'll present the original will, the circumstances of Emma's signing, and this email. You can fight us in court if you want. But I will warn you, judges do not look kindly on adults who use grief and fear to corner their own children. He let that hang in the air for a moment. Of course, he added, there is another way. You can acknowledge what you did, restore Emma's share of the house, and we can all walk out of here without a long, ugly trial. For the first time that day, Mark looked rattled. His lawyer leaned in close and whispered something in his ear. Mark's face darkened. This is ridiculous, he snapped. She was living off us. We fed her. We housed her. This is how she repays us? Dragging us into court? I paid what I could, I said. I worked. I helped. I took care of Lily, and even if I hadn't done any of that, my father bought that house. You didn't. Silence again. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice shaking. Just stop, she whispered to Mark. Please, I can't do this anymore. He turned to her, stunned. Linda, you said it would be simple, she said, tears running freely now. You said she'd be fine, that she'd find somewhere else. You didn't tell me it might go to court, that people would see that email. Her shoulders shook. He did want her to have half, she said, eyes closing. He said it to me. He said it to Sarah. He said it to Emma. We both knew it. She looked at me properly then, really looked. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice breaking. I chose the easy way. I let him talk me into it. I told myself you'd be okay because you're strong and that you'd understand one day. But that was just an excuse. I was selfish. I wanted a fresh start, and I didn't want anything or anyone to remind me of your father. Hearing her say it hurt in a way I wasn't ready for, but it also felt like finally ripping off a bandage that had been covering a wound for years. So here is what we propose, Mr. Patel said into the heavy silence. You sign a new agreement restoring Emma's legal share of the property as your late husband intended. You compensate her for the distress caused by locking her out, within reason. In return, she agrees not to pursue further action. Mark opened his mouth, but his lawyer's hand on his arm stopped him. I would advise my clients to consider that seriously, the man said quietly. Given the email, this is more than fair. There were more whispered arguments, more back and forth between them and their lawyer. My mother cried silently. Mark's anger flickered between hot and cold, like he couldn't decide whether to explode or shut down. In the end, they agreed, not because they suddenly understood what they had done, because they were cornered. We signed the new documents 2 weeks later. I walked out of that office with proof in my hands. I owned a share of the house again, on paper, enough that they could never erase me with a signature while I was broken. Enough that if they wanted their clean slate so badly, they had to buy me out properly. In the end, that's what happened. They paid me for my share. It wasn't some huge, life-changing amount, but it was enough for a deposit on my own place. Enough to start something that was mine, not borrowed, not given as a favor. As I stood outside the lawyer's building, new papers in my bag, my mother walked up to me slowly. Emma, she said, can we talk? I turned. For a moment, we just looked at each other. There was so much between us. Years of love, months of distance, one brutal night on a locked porch, and an email that had torn the mask off everything. I know you hate me, she whispered. I swallowed. I don't hate you, I said. I just finally believe you're capable of hurting me. Tears filled her eyes again. I don't deserve it, she said. But if you ever want to talk, really talk, without lawyers, I'll be here. I nodded once. Maybe, one day. When I'm not still standing outside doors, you closed on me. She flinched, but she didn't argue. She just stepped back and let me go. And this time, I walked away not as a girl begging to be let in. I walked away with my own keys. 3 months later, I stood in front of a different door. The building wasn't fancy. The hallway smelled like old paint and someone else's dinner. The light overhead flickered when you walked past. The elevator groaned every time it moved. But the key in my hand was mine. No one could change this lock without my permission. No one could decide I didn't belong here anymore to make their life easier. No one could lock me out overnight and tell themselves I would land on my feet somewhere else. I turned the key and stepped into my small one-bedroom apartment. Cardboard boxes were stacked against the wall. A cheap secondhand couch sat under the window. The floor with its scuffed wood wasn't pretty, but it was solid. Sunlight sneaked in through thin curtains, warm and honest. It didn't look like much, but it felt like freedom. I dropped my bag on the counter and stood in the middle of the room, listening to the quiet. Not the tense, heavy quiet of my old house. A clean kind of quiet. A blank page. My phone buzzed. Aunt Sarah, how's my favorite homeowner? Aunt Sarah, proud of you. Remember, love doesn't lock you out. It lets you in. I smiled, my throat tight. After everything, I'd expected to feel mostly rage. And yeah, it was still there sometimes. When I thought about that night on the porch, when I pictured Mark typing that email like I was a problem to be solved, when I remembered my own mother writing, "Fine, let's just get it over with." But under the anger, there was something else now. Relief. Not because I won, not because I got money, but because I proved to myself that when people crossed a line, I could push back. I could walk away, even if those people shared my last name. That was the real revenge. Not screaming, not smashing anything, not watching their lives fall apart. My revenge was building a life they couldn't control. A life where I didn't have to beg for a couch to sleep on or a room to stay in for now. A life where I didn't hang my entire sense of safety on someone who had already decided I was chaos she needed to clean up. Did it still hurt? Of course. There were nights I lay awake staring at my ceiling, wondering how my mother could sit on the other side of that door and ignore my calls. Wondering how long she sat there, eyes on her phone, while I froze in the car outside. Wondering if my dad would have forgiven her. Wondering if I ever could. Sometimes I'd scroll through old photos of us, birthday cakes, Christmas mornings, my graduation. We looked so happy, so normal. Then I'd remember her name at the bottom of that email. Mom. Fine, let's just get it over with. Some people will tell you blood is everything. That family can do no wrong. That you should forgive and forget no matter what. Here's what I learned, locked out on that cold night. Family is not the people who share your last name. Family is the people who open the door when you knock. The ones who print out the proof when everyone else tells you to stop being dramatic. The ones who sit beside you at the lawyer's office and remind you you're not crazy, you're not greedy, and you're not wrong for wanting to keep what was promised to you. My dad was family. Aunt Sarah is family. Little Lily, who one day will be old enough to ask her own questions, is family. I don't know yet what my mother is to me. Some days, she's the woman from my childhood who brushed my hair, packed my lunches, sang along to the radio with me in the car. Some days, she's the woman who read that email about locking me out, sighed and wrote, "Fine, let's just get it over with." Both can be true at the same time. We've spoken a few times since everything happened. Awkward, halting conversations where we dance around the worst of it. She cries. I listen. I tell her how it felt to sit in my car outside, how the cold hurt less than the silence. Sometimes we hang up angry, sometimes we hang up quiet. I don't know if we'll ever go back to the way we were. I'm not sure I want to. What I do know is this. I will never again stay silent just because I'm scared of losing someone. I will never again sign something I don't understand because an adult tells me, "Don't worry about it, it's just paperwork." I will never again let someone convince me that asking for what I was promised makes me ungrateful. The day the buyout money hit my account, Mark sent me one last text. Mark, I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. You tore this family apart. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I took a deep breath and typed back. Me, you tore it apart the night you locked me out and called it setting boundaries. I didn't destroy this family. I just stopped letting you lock me out of my life. I hit send, then I blocked his number. Not out of anger, out of peace. In the end, the secret message he thought would stay between him and his brother was the thing that exposed everything. His plan, his greed, my mother's fear, the quiet betrayal hiding under every fake smile. He thought locking me out would make me disappear. Instead, it forced me to step fully into my own life. So, if you've ever felt like someone shut you out to make their life easier, if you've ever been told you're too much, too needy, too dramatic for wanting basic respect, remember this. You are allowed to knock once. You are allowed to explain yourself. But you are also allowed to walk away when people keep the door closed. You don't have to stand on anyone's porch, freezing, waiting for their heart to open. You can find another door. You can make your own keys. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't watching them fall. It's watching yourself finally rise.